I'm Kristen, and this is the Explorer in You podcast. Now, what I've discovered after visiting 5 continents and some amazing places is that the greatest thing standing in your way of seeing the world is what you believe is possible. I believe that travel is for everyone, on any budget, and it doesn't have to be overwhelming. So this podcast is all about unlocking the explorer in you. You'll hear stories from people who will inspire you to set big travel goals and show you how to achieve them. Let's explore. Hey friends, welcome back to the Explorer in You podcast. So today's episode is all about how do you pick up your life and start a completely new one in a different country. And that's exactly what my guest today did. Michelle Alexander is originally from the Bay Area, but she has lived in Australia for the last 10 years, and she's really built a community. She's gotten married. She recently became a citizen, and she's really established a life there. So I thought she would be the perfect person to ask for tips about how do you start a new life abroad. Now, I met Michelle about 10 years ago before she left the country, and I remember just how warm and open she was. We connected over our love of reading, and I can see how her just really open and curious spirit have helped her to be open to making a new life in a different country. So she shares her tips about the mindset and the perspective and tools that you need to live life in a different country, what it's like to celebrate Christmas in summer, and how important it is to find a good immigration or migration agent, and how living abroad has redefined her definition of home. Now, she mentions this in the interview. Apparently, Australia has quite loud birds, and you'll hear them in the interview. And I enjoyed hearing them in our conversation. It gave me more of a taste of Australia. And we wrap up with Michelle's number one place to visit in Australia. So this is a fun conversation, and I hope you enjoy it. Hi, Michelle. Thanks for being on the show.
Hi, Kristen. So great to be invited. Such an honor. Thank you.
So I wanted to talk with you because you are one of the few people I know who has kind of picked up their life from one area on the globe and moved somewhere completely different. And I was just so curious about what that experience is like, how you had the courage, because to me that seems very courageous to just move somewhere else and start a new life, basically. So I thought that you'd be a great person to chat with. Can you tell me a little bit about your story?
Sure. A little bit about me. I was born in Santa Clara. I was a surprise birth because my mom didn't know she was having twins. So 5 minutes after my sister Darlene was born, the doctor heard a heartbeat, and that was me. I'm always fashionably late, even to this day.
Oh my God. I did not know that.
Yes. So I'll be late to my own funeral. And that's how I entered the world. I was very happy as a kid and very happy-go-lucky, didn't stress about anything. And we grew up in San Jose, and then in 3rd grade, we moved to Newark, which is in the East Bay of San Francisco area. And then my sister and I decided to go down to UC Irvine for university. And what I liked about growing up in California is the diversity. My mom would, and my dad, my real dad, my birth dad, would take us to lots of, cultural festivals. They introduced us to the library. We used to love maxing out our library cards. I think there's a connection to shopping there. But anyway, we would take out all these books and come home, and we'd get in trouble because we'd be reading books on everything. Like, we love to consume information. So yes, we love stories, but we love nonfiction. So yeah, we had a really colorful childhood. We were taken to museums all the time, exhibitions. My mom worked full-time as a registered nurse at Good Samaritan Hospital, which she still works at. I ended up working with her there for a while. And we traveled a lot. We went to Lake Tahoe, Yosemite. We went to the snow. We went to the beach. We went to the desert, you name it. And we didn't have a lot of money. Like, we were probably like, I don't know, in the middle somewhere, but we were always given opportunities to learn and explore different places. And I love that my mom introduced us to that early on in life. So I love that diversity. And then the school we went to, like our elementary school and then our high school, we didn't have a lot of cliques. We were very lucky. And I found that, you know, even at Newark Memorial High School, where I graduated, I went there for 4 years, my sister and I were able to, you know, float in and out of different groups and make lots of friends. And it was just a really safe, secure, and friendly place. And everyone was really into their studies, especially us. And so I think just having such a positive mindset getting into university, that helped me when I went to UC Irvine, you know, living far away from home for the first time. We had really strict parents. So as you can imagine, we just wanted to party. We wanted to rebel. So we joined a sorority. And I remember just doing all those things you see in the movies, you know, hotel parties, beach hotels. I went and got a tongue piercing with tattoos, you name it, we did it. But I always knew when to get to class. So that was a good thing. We ended up going back up the coast and I finished my university studies. And originally I wanted to become a doctor, but then I changed my mind and I wanted to work in finance for some reason or other. I don't know why. Then I got my first bachelor's in business and then decided, no, I want to go back to medical. But my mom was supporting me at the time. She's like, no way, you get your first bachelor's, then you can do whatever you want. I was like, fair enough. So I graduated on my 4th year and then decided to apply to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. So I went there and took some science classes so I could become a doctor. That was the plan. I wanted to become a dermatologist. But then I also still was very young and a little still immature and I loved to party. So I made lots of friends and enjoyed myself a little too much. Then decided I would take nursing classes and then applied to a school back up north in Oakland and San Francisco called Samuel Merritt. They were offering something that no one else was offering at the time. It's the largest private nursing school. They offered a 12-month accelerated bachelor's. And me being very impatient, I just wanted to get the skills I needed to work with patients. I really wanted to work in hospitals like my mom and be able to apply what I learned straight away. I just wanted to get in there and work. So I got into this program and worked my butt off and really enjoyed it. I loved it. And I worked at the same hospital that my mom worked at. We had a great time, you know, kind of bumping into each other in the hallways. And I learned what it was like to work in healthcare. But then I met my ex and that's how I ended up, you know, moving abroad and the whirlwind that happened after that.
Can you tell me about your journey to becoming an expat?
Sure. So it all started when I met an ex of mine in San Francisco, where I'm from. And he is originally from Ireland. And with circumstances surrounding his visa, he wasn't able to stay in San Francisco. So he had to go back to Ireland. And after some long distance in our relationship, I decided, right, I'm just going to go and join him in Ireland and start a new adventure. What started out as just a temporary solution to spend, you know, time in the same geographic location, we decided we would go for a working holiday just 1 year in Australia. And this is a common theme amongst a lot of us expats here in Australia. 1 year turns into forever, especially in my case. And it honestly was just a spur of the moment decision. And we arrived to that decision because his little brother had worked and lived in Brisbane, Australia, and loved it. And just from that one experience, we decided, okay, we're going to go. Even though we knew nothing about Australia, for myself, I thought it was similar to something like San Diego with the beaches and everything. I was very wrong, but that's how it started. That's how we decided to move to Australia.
Wow. So it sounded like not necessarily on a whim, but very spontaneous.
Yes,
decision.
yes.
Yeah.
Which is surprising considering it's such a heavy and big decision.
Did you have any like reservations about it? Any nervousness? Or were you just ready to go?
Well, I think I was more nervous to join my ex in Ireland. And I think with the intention of joining him and living with him somewhere, we did have a holiday. We went to France, we went to Italy, we went to Spain. We took some weeks and explored and talked about and dreamt about where we would live and work. And at that time, we were we were able to choose. We had no babies, no extra commitments. I had just gone back to school to get a second bachelor's in nursing. And with that degree in nursing from the States, it was a good decision to kind of pick up and go and be able to, I suppose, have an adventure. So yes, I mean, we had our normal reservations. We were scared that we would miss our friends and family and that we would struggle, but having a very, short commitment of 1 year as a working holiday initially didn't seem too scary.
And then when you arrived in Australia, is it what you expected, or was it completely unexpected?
Well, it was really hot and humid, and I was swearing to myself, thinking, what have we done? Oh, no. I was just so used to the dry heat in California, and it's just so muggy and humid. And sure, I've been to Hawaii and Mexico where, it's humid, and Vietnam, but this was different. It was just so heavy. And we had landed in the end of March 2011. And if anyone's from Australia, they would remember in Brisbane, the Great Flood had just happened in January. So as much as I expected, really beautiful scenery, which we did see, we also saw a lot of damage. This never really happens. And there was some major flooding. Lots of businesses, buildings, homes had been damaged and completely destroyed. And to be landed into a place like that was, really eventful. And so the weather was the first maybe difference that we had noticed. And then the streets itself, where they weren't damaged by floods, were really clean and beautiful and really new looking, which was surprising to us coming from a place where, you could walk down one street in San Francisco and then 3 blocks down, you're, in a very graffitied and dirty, and, you see a lot of homeless people on the streets. You don't see a lot of that here in Brisbane.
And Brisbane is so how far are you from the ocean?
We are about 50 minutes drive to the ocean, maybe shorter actually, but I think you would probably heard of the Sunshine Coast and the Gold Coast. Yes, and the Gold Coast is 1 hour driving south on the highway from Brisbane, and then the Sunshine Coast is about an hour 20 to 2 hours north of Brisbane.
Okay, but it sounds like it's still pretty humid as far inland as you are.
Yes.
So what are some of the challenges to being an expat, would you say, and how have you overcome them?
Oh, there's so many, Christine, I couldn't even begin.
Top 3, maybe.
The top 3, maybe learning the new system of a whole new country. You would assume that, because we all speak English, it's really easy to understand a lot of things, coming to, a country that also speaks English, but it's so different because a lot of it is British English. So a lot of the phrases and the terminology I always Googled everything, and I asked a lot of questions, even if they sounded dumb. And that's how I started. I used to carry around this little book, like a little nerd, and I would write down these phrases. For instance, I would go into a shop and I was looking for jeans, and a girl who works at the retail shop says something like, "Hey, how you going?" And I thought, going? And I'm looking to my left and right, like, you're talking to me? I'm going into your store. Is that okay? And then I realized, oh no, that just means, how are you doing? It's okay. You're not in trouble. Just getting used to what people mean, because a lot of times Aussies shorten everything. They'll say arvo, which means afternoon. I know, it doesn't make any sense. Or one day we were leaving the house to go to a restaurant, and our housemate says, "Go grab your thongs." And I'm like, why is everyone talking about their thongs? I didn't realize thongs meant flip-flops, not like your underwear. I think language barrier, cultural barrier, just learning how to navigate, public transport and finding the right resources. So I think research and asking lots of questions helped. And of course, obviously missing the familiarity of your friends and family. So, Skype was really big back then. FaceTime was just only beginning to start to take foot, in our comes and using it every day. But I'd say Instagram, Facebook, that really helped keep me stay like more connected to people back home.
Yeah, and it's interesting that even though you moved to another English speaking country, that it's still a completely different culture. Even English language is not the same. So that's a big, like, you would think, oh, it's easy, but there's still cultural challenges that you have to overcome for sure.
Absolutely. I wasn't prepared for all the difference in the two countries, but there's so many, and I'm still finding a lot to this day.
That sounds like it could be fun, though, to continue to discover things.
Yes, absolutely. It's never boring. I do still have that mentality. I wake up, I'm like, oh, I'm so lucky to be here. I'm still on holiday mode, even though I've been working here, living here for almost 10 years.
Wow.
It does feel very tropical. And where we live too, we have a lot of greenery and you can't get over the birds. Oh my God, Kristen, the birds are so loud here. Like,
are they big? Is that why they're loud?
Really? They can be small and they have the most powerful lungs. We just are, some of it's really beautiful and melodic, and some are just really bold and
obnoxious.
Really yes.
Yeah.
You do get used to it after a while. And I think the longer you've lived here, you start to not notice, their sounds.
And then, so what are some of the best things about being an expat?
Well, you kind of brushed on that, the sense that you can always explore. There's always something new. There's always new people arriving. It's a big metropolitan hub here. And you're, constantly, because you're in you're in a growth mentality when you're living overseas, because you're always learning, asking questions, being put in the unknown. Everything is uncharted territory. So as soon as you get comfortable with one stage of your life, it's like something else comes in, much like back home. It's just now everything is in a new environment. So you're always on your toes. And I think that's really exciting. You feel like you're constantly in travel mode and in exploration mode. Everything's new. It's delightful. You have this gypsy kind of wanderer mindset. And I think it's wonderful to be in a new place. And even after 10 years, it doesn't get old.
Yeah. And I know that you are you have a very growth mindset. So I'm sure it's just really great to sort of be in that constant, learning, exploration.
Yes, definitely.
And then, so how's COVID affected your life this past year? I feel like Australia has done a pretty good job of handling the situation, but has it affected daily life or tourism where you're at?
I think as a whole, Australia has always looked to its government as a source of solution, not the cause of problems. And even if we don't always agree with what the government insists on, I like how the Australian government quickly shut down its borders and decided that we would put a swift lockdown in areas that we needed to and really get the manpower that's needed for tracing and testing. And I believe that's why our state, where I live in Queensland, did such a great job. Our government leader, Anastasia Palaszczuk, she put down, she closed down the borders to all the neighboring states. So already people within Australia couldn't move from one state to the next, which at first was, such a big obstacle because a lot of people obviously have their partners and families. Some people couldn't see their sick relatives or go and see, the birth of their baby. However, I think in retrospect, looking at how things panned out in the year 2020, we were able to minimize a lot of deaths and really, really be able to stop the spread of a lot of these infections. Our neighboring states weren't as lucky. You might have read in the news, Melbourne, which is in the state of Victoria, had a second wave of infection and had 112 days of extreme strict lockdown where you couldn't, exercise further than so many kilometers of your house. Wow. All the schools, the shops, everything was shut down. You could only get things online delivered to your house. Obviously, everyone had to wear masks. There were police everywhere enforcing these rules. And you were given, big fines if you were caught. People were ridiculous getting caught, driving up and down the coast of the state to get a hamburger. Wow. You just read these crazy things. And Same in New South Wales and Sydney, you would see, 200 party goers on the beach, and that, obviously that was against the rules. But for the most part, Australia did a great job. I think, of course, there's different political parties, but I think they all banded together and decided to put their differences down and look out for the health and safety and well-being of all their citizens, no matter who they were. And looking also at our neighboring, neighbors over in New Zealand, they did such a fantastic example. I think that helped us have more confidence in being able to, enforce these rules. And then everybody, for the most part, and I'd say 90% of people walking around would be, wearing a mask and making sure that they were doing the right thing, not just for themselves, but to protect others. And I love that they call it mateship here in Australia. We're looking out for each other. And I think that's a really strong sense of community and looking out for one another. I love that.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and a lot different than in the States. We've handled it quite a bit differently, but I've noticed on your Instagram posts that, it doesn't seem like, well, at least specifically where you are, that it had hit that much. Like life looked pretty normal, except for like masks. But it seemed like people could still live about their day and mostly normally. And like, that's such a blessing because, not a lot of people were able to do that. But, if you kind of take those measures in the first place to protect each other, then that lets you to continue sort of that normality. And I think, as we've seen here, when we don't do those things, then that's when things just shut down and, they become very, not ideal.
Yes, no, I agree. And yes, you're right. Compared to everyone else in Australia, Brisbane itself and the state of Queensland were very lucky. And that's because things were, I guess, prevented from getting worse early 2020. And we only had a sanctioned 6-week lockdown compared to everyone else. And we were able to lift that and then carry on as normal. So some businesses that were, worried about, carrying on with their day-to-day, we all had a sigh of relief. And then the government also introduced a lot of help. We had a program called Job Seeker to help people look for new jobs. Some government help in a program called Job Keeper, and that helped a lot of individuals and businesses to be able to continue to pay their employees, even if they weren't able to continue, as they used to. And I love that. That really helped, especially because once our borders were shut, I noticed the economy had, their tourism, their education, all those departments suffered because we're so close to China, and that's our major source of revenue, sometimes coming in with the export of, tourists and international students. And so even though a lot of international students were stuck here in Australia itself, a lot of people were over in China for holidays and couldn't come back into Australia. So, but we did, for the most part, we are still having a normal lifestyle. We had one active case recently over a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Our government here in the state asked us to lock down, and we stayed indoors. And if we had to go get groceries or exercise, we had to wear a mask in all public areas. And that wasn't meant to stop the spread, but basically just to kind of slow things down so that the government had time to react and plan out how big is this UK strain going to happen. And that was just from one active case. But you know what? It worked. And now we're back to being normal and not having to wear a mask.
Yeah, not getting to that point of everything shut down. Yeah.
Yes.
That's great. So can you share a few lessons that you've learned from living abroad? Maybe what are some major cultural differences or similarities? I know you touched on a few of the language things, but maybe there are some other things.
Well, for one, I think you have to surrender to the unknown. Just with any new change, I think living abroad really helped me learn that in life, you just can't count on anything happening, no matter how well prepared you are, how well you've researched and planned something. So if you're a type A kind of over planner. I'm sorry, but if you want to live abroad, you have to give some of that up. And I think once you don't have any expectation, really great things do come, and you're open and you're flexible to things changing. And I think that's with any challenge or new change that you're trying to bring into your life. And you have this mentality, either you sink or you swim, and it's survival mode. You're here by yourself. You don't have your friends and family to support you or to back you up. You have to make new friends, or you have no friends, and you have to go out there and look for a job and become part of the community. And the great thing about Australia is people are so warm, they're so friendly and welcoming. I found that especially in Brisbane, people would actually walk you if you were lost and direct you personally to something, rather than just kind of pointing here and there and giving you sketchy directions. Maybe it helps because I'm a female looking lost, but to be honest, I've spoken to a lot of males who have come here from other countries, and they do agree that Brisbane, compared to a lot of the other capital cities as well, is super, super friendly and welcoming. And as we all know, as you get older and you're not in school anymore, it's hard to make friends. But I found coming here as an expat, you do easily make new friends and get invited to social functions. And that first couple of years was very crucial. And I said yes to everyone and everything, even if there were people who I personally didn't think I would make friends with back at home. I just thought, look, Michelle, you have nothing to lose. You got to put yourself out there and get out of the house. Otherwise, you're constantly missing where you'd rather be, which is sometimes back to your original home country. So it's good to, one, get yourself out there so you don't wallow in despair and misery and miss your comforts, but also don't miss out on opportunities that can come unexpectedly.
It sounds like that experience too must be very empowering.
Very.
Said you're sink or swim, so you're the only person that you can only rely on yourself. So it's really up to you, and to be able to build the community and just do it, just live a life must be really empowering, I'm sure.
Absolutely. It's a word that I would definitely use to describe being an expat. Empowerment, fresh start, accomplishment, freedom, new everything. And that helps you not take anything for granted.
We talked about saying yes to everything. Are there other ways that you would encourage people if they move abroad, like ways that they can build community?
Absolutely. There's some really great groups on Facebook. I joined a Facebook group called Americans in Australia, and they have a lot of meetups.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's fantastic. There's so many people there all throughout the country, and then people are really quick to ask questions and answer questions there. So I've seen a lot of people who are even just researching coming to Australia, asking their questions there. And there's, people are always so open and helpful, and they'll give their honest, feedback and advice. Also, researching a really good immigration or migration agent, especially in the beginning, is so crucial. I wouldn't just go with anyone. I would ask around for people who've had personal good experience. And because there's a lot of people out there who just want to take your money and give you really horrible advice. I have a couple of friends who brought their family over from Scotland, and they were duped and given the wrong information. And now they're paying tens of thousands of dollars and spending months and months and months trying to reverse the damage that's been done by coming into the country with the wrong visa and this and that. So
that role is someone who helps you sort of navigate the immigration process?
Exactly. So they know all the legalities, and they're responsible for making sure they present you with the best options, and so you can make an informed decision. But obviously it's your onus to look up and research all the recent updates, because not every migration agent is the same. And so you want to make sure that you're getting the best information and double check what they're providing you. And then they do navigate and help you, and with the paperwork, because sometimes it does get really confusing. But for myself, I found that I could take over and start doing my own applications myself. And as long as you have the patience and the know-how, you could sit down and do it yourself.
And then it sounds like you were pretty successful doing it yourself. You recently became an Australian citizen.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's pretty surreal. I never thought that I would get to this point. It's, a lot of people just stay at the permanent residency, which is equivalent to a green card in the US, where you can live permanently. But you do here in Australia have to renew your permanent residency every 5 years. And that's not something I wanted to do. And we're lucky at being an American citizen, you can still have dual citizenship and not give up your American citizenship. So I decided, look, if I could get to citizenship, that would be my final goal. So after some paperwork, it honestly, compared to getting to the permanent residency, is a walk in the park. Permanent residency is extremely difficult to get to, and a lot of paperwork and a lot of money, but it's worth it.
Yeah, it's so exciting. And then, so what has living abroad taught you anything about identity?
Yes, I think identity really changed and evolved for me. From the instant I moved here, I felt that I had one foot in Australia, one foot back in the US. And every time I would visit, I didn't know what home meant. And I think the concept of home has been so fluid over the years. And now I know that it means more than one thing, more than one place. It could mean I feel at home with certain like-minded people and people who are also citizens of the world. I mean, you can be Vietnamese, American, and Australian all at the same time. We don't have to box ourselves in. And I feel that it's such a blessing to reinvent yourself. And you can do that even at home, not living abroad. And it really is, it comes down to mindset and how open you are to accepting change and taking the best bits of your life experience and the people that you come across so that you can introduce that into your everyday.
Do you think being open and flexible is one of the things that's helped you to successfully make that transition?
Yes, absolutely. I think those are two traits that if you don't naturally have, to work on having so that you would be successful in living abroad, or even just to travel better and really soak up all the goodness that life can bring. And I think, the more obviously positive you are and open you are, and, not someone who's not quick to prejudge, and just allow good things and good people to come into your life, the more that will happen. When I lived, up and down the coast of San Francisco, I think that was a little bit of a stepping stone, moving from one place to the next, starting new schools, meeting new friends. I was constantly challenging myself basically to really stretch and welcome in the new.
Yeah, I think when you are constantly pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, at some point it does really become easier because you've kind of proven to yourself that, oh, okay, I've done this before. It's that familiarity where it's like, oh, okay, I know how to do this new thing, and that I'll be okay after I've, pushed myself.
Not to say that there were many, many days where I would wake up and I would wonder, what am I doing in this new country or new city? Because you do question your decisions and you wonder, what have I left behind? Was it better than what I have now? And what's in store for me? Am I just going to become a failure? All the fears come back. Am I going to be rejected? Am I taking the wrong path? But I think that's all part of growth. And, as long as you put one step in front of the other and take ownership of your decisions, no matter if it turns out good or bad, it's still a decision that you've made to honor your values. And I think as you grow older, hopefully wiser, that you know that, the things that make you joyful, that you do more of, and surround yourself with more of that.
And speaking of joyful, so you were in Australia and you met a guy.
Yes, I'm so glad. I was so close to moving back home after I broke up with my ex, because I had planned, our whole life. And I thought I was going to marry this man who I moved all across the world for.
Right.
I'd given up so much for, but then life, takes another unexpected turn. I don't know if it was pride or just stubbornness. I decided to stay in Australia and really put my foot down so I can create some roots. And I'm glad I did, because the friends that I made, they're amazing. 10 years ago, we're still friends, and we've grown from single party girls to family women with kids and careers and, all of that. It's really cool. And, Yeah, just randomly. I was in a bar here in Brisbane, and it's an American music hall of all places. And they were playing Johnny Cash. It was a big band with the cello and the guitar and the keys. And I was actually there to kind of babysit a guy friend who was visiting from Darwin. While he was trying to pick up these girls at the bar, I was looking over the balcony and I was over it. I didn't want to date anyone. I thought I was going to be single with, cats all my life. And I'll look over and watch the music and kind of just swaying to the music. And I look over and then some man comes up. He's tall, he's handsome, he's confident, he's got a bit of a swagger. And I remember he looked like a cowboy because he had these cowboy boots and like this belt. And I thought, oh, this will be interesting. I just felt this instant connection. And, he said he did too. And we just started talking. And he asked if I wanted to dance. And he, straight away said, oh, where are you from? Your accent. I'm like, where are you from? Your accent. And it's funny because we ended up marrying, obviously. And he has two beautiful boys who are my stepsons. And, I was launched into a role of not just wife, but stepmother. And, I'm just lucky that it's just, they're all really beautiful people. And that has really helped. And the kids have a mom who is very understanding and we hang out, and she's got a partner who's really cool as well. And, it really takes a village. And I'm just glad I said yes and I stayed here for whatever reason that was pulling me to stay here instead of coming home to my comforts.
Yeah.
Because I miss my mom, my friends, my sister, all of that. You just never know what happens. So here I am.
So pre-pandemic, how often would you visit home?
Well, I was lucky enough to have my parents come every year, or I would come over there. Trent and I have taken the kids multiple times. So sometimes every 6 months, sometimes every 12 months. We were quite lucky that my parents are still quite mobile. My mom and my stepdad are able to pick up and go whenever. My stepdad is semi-retired. Well, I think he's retired now. And my mom, she has seniority at the hospital, so she can kind of just take vacation whenever she wants. So we have been able to meet not just in Australia, but also, in parts of Asia and Europe itself, which is really cool because then we can all discover something new together. But it's been great bringing the two families together. My Aussie family has met my family. My family has come out here for my engagement party, my wedding in Byron Bay, and all those important milestones. So, the pandemic has been hard on us because it's been a long time, over a year that we've seen each other, and I'm really feeling it.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that, with the vaccinations and everything, that will open up the possibilities for us to see people again. In terms of your travel, when your home base is California, say, your Hawaii is a big place to go, or Canada or Mexico. What are the places that most Australians vacation to in that corner of the world?
I would say New Zealand for one, Bali, Vietnam, anywhere in Asia. Bali is about 6 hours away, which isn't very, 5 or 6 hours. So nice. And, I think Bali gets a really bad reputation because a lot of backpackers go and party and go to these places that aren't the classiest and get into a lot of trouble. But lucky for me and my friends, we went and met a girlfriend of ours who is actually from there. And so she's a local, but she also lived in Australia. So she straddles, both cultures really well and was able to introduce us to her local spots that we wouldn't have otherwise went to. And they're all really nice, classy bars and nightclubs and restaurants, and kind of was able to recommend certain areas that we would feel safe staying in. We booked all these Airbnbs. I liked it so much that I went a second time with my family. I had my mom and my stepdad meet us. They flew in from the States because it was my mom's 60th birthday. So we were able to hop around different islands in Bali and just have a really wonderful experience. Yes. So I'd say Bali and New Zealand. I'm ashamed to say I haven't been to New Zealand, and it's only 3 hours away from here. I know.
Michelle,
I know.
What is happening? I've been to New Zealand and it's hours from. You'll get there.
But do you agree, Kristen? Like when you have something in your backyard, like I didn't ride a cable car in San Francisco my entire life. Like those kind of things you feel like, oh, they're there all the time. It's like having a swimming pool, or, you just don't really, you take it for granted.
Oh, I 100% agree with you. I have not been to the Grand Canyon. I have not been to Yellowstone. Like, these very beautiful places. I mean, we're lucky in California. We have like Yosemite and like Tahoe. Like, we have a lot of things to see, but there are some really beautiful places that really aren't that far from me that I haven't been to yet because, like you said, it's in my backyard. So no judgment. I totally get it. But they're not New Zealand though.
I know. Even the kids have gone multiple times.
You'll get there.
I'll get there.
So I'd like to ask all my guests one final question, and it's if you could share with me a travel experience that really brought you joy.
Sure. I'd like to share two, one that's outside of Australia and then one that's in Australia. First, the one in Australia that's brought me a lot of joy would be the Whitsundays. It's part of the Great Barrier Reef, which is north on the eastern seaboard of Australia. And it's just beautiful white sandy beaches. You can hop from island to island. You can go on catamarans or sailing. You don't necessarily have to scuba dive to see lots of fish and beautiful underworld like animals and coral. You can only just go on one of these chartered boats and they'll take you out an hour and a half into the water. And it's just stunning. And all you need is a snorkel and some fins, but extraordinary. And tourism here is so great. So the service that you're going to get is awesome. The food, the seafood, the wine, I just love it. I mean, all over Australia is fantastic. It's hard to pinpoint one place, but I say the Whitsundays, which is, up in that area where the Great Barrier Reef is one of those beautiful places that just make you go, oh, wow,
like I'm lucky to be alive kind of place.
Yes. It's like straight out of the movies and it's so pristine and beautiful. Second would be a very spontaneous trip that was part of our honeymoon. We had spent some time going from Dubai to Croatia, then to Rome, Naples, and then Amalfi Coast, Positano. And we had a few days where I told my husband, let's just leave it to chance. So he's like, yeah, sure, cool. Great travel partner, not a control freak. So, I was Googling this island. I might be pronouncing it wrong. It could be Ischia or Ischia versus Capri. One was obviously really well-known, Capri, and then the other one that I can't pronounce. Anyways, Trent, my husband, looked at the photos and the reviews. He's like, let's go to Capri. I was like, okay, let's do it. So we booked something just for the moment. We went on to the boat and decided to come out there. And of course, there were a lot of tourists, but we had read in the reviews, as soon as sun comes down, all the day tourists go back to the mainland and you have the whole island to yourself. And it's not disappointing. Like, have you been to Capri?
I haven't, no.
Oh my God.
I would love to go.
It is out of this world. It has one of those rare aspects that you feel this sparkly, magnetic, sort of spiritual happiness. Like there's something really soulful about this place. And Capri has all of that, the sparkling blue and green waters. It's all so clear. The mountains and the craggy like outline of the island. And then if you walk around and you see where the locals live, up these hills all around the island, you could smell lemon and olives and all very Mediterranean. Everything is so lush and fertile because of the volcanic soil. And it's just an explosion of colors. There's all these different apothecaries with like scents of, flowers. I got suckered into buying a perfume there. it's just beautiful and it's romantic. I mean, whether you go with friends, by yourself, or with a partner, I think Island of Capri is everything you could imagine. But you definitely want to spend a few nights there, because that's when the magic happens.
Yeah, it just sounds so magical. And it sounds like you get a lot from all your senses, which probably makes it such a memorable experience.
Yes, there's some beautiful villas that the public can go and tour. And it's just something out of, I don't know, an Italian Great Gatsby, and the stories of the parties they would have there and the different counts that would own it. It's gorgeous. There's actually, and it's funny because recently I read a book by Kevin Kwan, and it's in the location of Island of Capri, and the way that he wrote about it is spectacular. Like it really does capture that magic.
Oh, okay. I'm going to have to get that. Actually, send me the title and we'll include it in the show notes so people can get a taste of Capri, which I know we're all wanting a taste of somewhere different right now.
Yes.
So it's summertime where you're at.
Yes, it's in the middle of summer. We have another month or two of this heat and lots of swimming. We're always at the beach or swimming, wherever we can. We have a 100-acre property 40 minutes west of here where it's mostly bushland, but we have access to our neighbors who have access to the river where we can swim, and there's banks of beautiful green grass, and it's very country. I never expected that we would live a life, in the suburbs, but also out in the country. But I love that, especially all year round. We can go there and enjoy, the different animals and just being able to be outdoors and being out in the bush and swimming.
Nice. Yeah. It sounds like it's a nice, peaceful getaway.
Yes.
And I always enjoy seeing your posts, because when we're in the middle of winter here and I see your like fun, sunny, sunshiny posts, it just kind of lifts my spirits. Like, oh, okay. I remember what summer was like. Not that our winters are that bad here, but it's like when you see people wearing like cute dresses and like just enjoying the beach, it's nice to have that like reverse, reality then.
Oh my gosh. Yes. It's like a parallel universe sometimes. And when you guys have your Christmas, that's when I get a bit sad and nostalgic, because I see everyone rugged up in their warm coats and drinking their Starbucks. And actually it starts in October. I really miss home then, because it's all, pumpkin spice lattes. That's not a thing here. You have to like buy an expensive packet that sent in the mail to get anything even close. Actually, that's a good business idea. I might look into that.
There you go. You could pitch it to all the people in your Facebook group.
Yes, actually, that's a great idea. Thanks, Kristen.
There you go. Done and done.
Because I think around October, that's when the festivity starts in the States. Like you have your Halloween, and it leads into Thanksgiving and to Christmas. And obviously in Australia, we don't have, Halloween's only taken into popularity the past few years, which has been slow, because they used to think, oh, only the Americans do it. But now everyone's into it, which is really funny. I'm like, ha! Now
they realized how fun it is.
Exactly. The kids love it, And, but yes, Thanksgiving is still not a huge thing. But lucky for us, we have some friends here who invited us to a big shindig just recently. And now hopefully, if we're in their good graces, we'll continue to be invited for years to come. But everyone comes, and it was the first time in years I actually personally haven't celebrated Thanksgiving, because the kids and Trent at home, it's so hot during the month of November that we don't want to go to that effort, just the four of us, to make a turkey and all that. But I love, like you said, because it's so cold back where you guys are, I love seeing the photos and the videos and seeing the pumpkins and all the wreaths coming out, and the cold. I miss that.
Yeah, I see your posts during our winter and like Christmas, and I'm like, how, like, that must be very strange coming from where we come from to have hot Christmases. And
it is the strangest thing. And not that I hate it, but I just it doesn't feel the same. So for a lot of us from the Northern Hemisphere, whether we're from America, Canada, Europe, I know that a lot of us have taken on the Christmas in July, because that's when it's cold here. And for a while, we've been hosting some Christmas in July campouts at our land. We didn't this year or last year, but yeah, it is fun, because then we can actually, wear our ugly Christmas sweaters and make
you got to do it. I mean, it might not be the same time of year, but it's the same essence of the feeling of everything that you can bring to the season. So
exactly, we have to get creative.
Thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your experiences. Taking that huge, I think, courageous leap to just start a new life in a completely new culture and country. And I feel like I've learned a lot about what that experience is like, and how to navigate it. So it's been a really good conversation.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Kristen.
Thanks for listening to the Explorer in You podcast. Don't worry, we have a new episode every week. Subscribe so you don't miss it. And don't forget to visit explorerandyou.com for more inspiration and tips. If you want to share the love, you're welcome to send this podcast to others. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.